Hey there everyone, it's Sarah from 4i Book Nerd, and today we must discuss things. So today what I wanted to talk about was book endings and let you know what I think most book endings are like and my kind of opinion, some of my favorite endings, stuff like that. And every book has this, every book concludes, every book ends, they all do it differently. But what I've picked up on recently in books is that I think most book endings fall into 4 different categories. So the first group of endings is cliffhangers, aka give me more now, why must I wait a year for the next effing book? Cliffhangers, I think, make up the majority of book endings, and that might just be based on what I read. Cliffhangers I usually find happen in series, normally in like the second book, third, fourth, etc., going on until the end, is mostly when I find cliffhangers happening, the little tidbit the authors leave you with until next year's book, which is so annoying. Just want to know what happens next. Give me more! I grouped some of books I believe have the most insane cliffhangers. These cliffhangers have caused me so much grief, I bet you can imagine. First, Mark of Athena. Opal by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Luckily, the next book is already out for me, which is awesome, but I feel bad for you guys who have The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. If you have read this book, you know what I'm talking about. That ending. I had to wait months to find out what happened with that. Why? Ugh. Next, Just One Day by Gail Forman. This is a contemporary novel. Most contemporary novels wrap up nicely at the end with a little pretty bow on top, if you're lucky. This one, door and but not end, a cliffhanger, and then the sequel wasn't really a sequel, and then we finally got the novella that takes place after the end of this book, but man was it frustrating. If I hadn't read that next part, I would have not been happy with this ending. Evolution of Mara Dyer. Like, when's Retribution coming out? Because I do not believe what happened. I'm in disbelief. And lastly, possibly the most frustrating cliffhanger I have ever read. Pandemonium by Lauren Oliver. Legit, I was not really enjoying much of that book, and then I got to the end, and I was like, no, and I flipped out. Then I had donated the book to my friend from camp, her bed right next to mine, and when she got to the end, she literally slammed the book closed, turns to me and was like, no way! And I was like, right? Cliffhangers are really frustrating, and I understand why they do it to get the readers, make sure they read next book in the series, which is the time we usually find it, but man, cliffhangers, man, annoying. The second group I have is endings that aren't really endings. You know what I'm talking about. Where they end in the middle of an event. And you're like, wait, what? There should be more. You feel like the story still hasn't been closed out entirely, that there's still so much more to flesh out. And it's not when things I wish there was more. It's it needed an epilogue. It needed 20 more pages to finish out the story. You guys know what book I'm talking about. Enough said. The next book are books with epilogues, and those I usually find at the end of a series and make me so happy because I know that everything's going well for the characters I've invested so much time into. They also tie up the arc of the story nice and make it seem like everything's going where it should be. One thing about series is that they have a whole series to close out an arc instead of just one book. So for those, I think it's easier to get endings because you don't really look at individual endings of the book. You wait till the end of this series, it's like the end of the book. You have a whole book to close out your big book. What? Like with The Mortal Instruments, it closed out the story really well in the 6th book, and then you have the epilogue knowing everything's going well. It closed out our character stories, and it's just a really satisfying ending. Harry Potter, lovely epilogue. I loved the ending to that series as well. Opposition, Jennifer L. Armentrout, also had an epilogue. Very happy to see that. It makes everything in the world better. And lastly, are endings that are actually satisfying. Not satisfying endings. Death. Not epilogues. cliffhangers. So a lot of times I feel it's hard for me to find an ending that really satisfies me, especially like ones not grouped in the ones I've already mentioned, because when you have a series, it's hard to end a book without a cliffhanger. Most endings in series are cliffhanger because there's so much more to still be fleshed out in the rest of the series that it's necessary to have a cliffhanger. Standalone contemporaries, on the other time, it's hard because you spent the whole book with these characters and you want more, and it's hard to close out a story in contemporary because obviously there's so much more that's going to happen. Normally the endings I find most satisfying are at the end of the series. Like I said before, series are lucky because they have like 6, 3, whatever books to close out an arc. So the authors have time to think of where they want the story to go, where they want their characters to end up. And usually those endings I find the most satisfying because the characters are where they're supposed to be. I mean, it's hard to find satisfying endings. I think some of those would be in my favorites. Beastly. I loved City of Heavenly Fire. I loved Opposition. I loved, like, books. The last couple 20 pages, man, it's hard to find a good ending. Thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know below what some of your favorite book endings were. How annoying are cliffhangers, right? Let me know below the frustrating endings you've had to read. Any endings you thought were awesome or not awesome, because there are a lot of not awesome endings out there. Let's be real, guys. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can find more updates from Molly and I at foureyeddbooknerd.blogspot.com. You can follow us on Twitter at foureyeddbooknerd. You can also find me on Goodreads, sarahpatch_182. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you soon with another video. Bye!